Hey everybody, it's Saturday, December 28th, and this is Tinderbox Meetup with Michael Becker. I'm Mark Bernstein, the designer of Tinderbox, and I've been up to my elbows in research the last week, working on a new view with Mark Anderson and Chimera Royale and Silas Hooper. So this is going to be coming down your pike in a couple of months, a newer view, and it's so far a lot of fun. And without further ado, here's Michael Becker.
Well, first and foremost, I'm super excited to hear about the new view. That sounds like fun. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today in today's meetup, given that it's we've got a small group. So hi everybody, welcome to Tinderbox December 2028. I hope you all had a nice holiday. Typically what we do in the meetups is we go around the room and anybody new gets to introduce themselves. We obviously don't have anybody new today, given the small crowd. We then dig into a theme or we address people's questions, comments, or ideas about what they're doing and working on with Tinderbox specifically or tools for thought in general. So again, given that we have such a small group, let's just start with Mr. Bernstein. Go for it, and then we'll
Yeah,
have.
here I forget, we have a scheduling change coming up, I believe.
We do.
Uh, Next week would normally be a Saturday, but is going to be a Sunday?
No, no, no. Next week
No.
will probably be a Sunday because today's Saturday, and then we would move to a Sunday. But because we're
Ah,
switching, next week's going to be a Saturday,
Saturday too.
and then we'll do the Saturday Sunday swap back and forth between now and then. And the reason being is I've been invited to participate on a every second Saturday of the month men's group, and I want to participate in that. So I will swap. I appreciate everybody willing to swap that out for the 2025.
Right.
So
So we have two Saturdays in a row, in other
two
words.
two Saturdays in a row, and then we're back to the normal flipping of the schedule. The other thing, while we're at it and giving public service announcements, is let's all not forget we have Winterfest. Let me pull that up. And so everyone can see it. So if you haven't done so already, you can go and get your artisanal software at steep discounts at the 2024 Winterfest. And I'll also be hosting a Tinderbox 101 course, which is now being promoted on Winterfest as well. So for those that are interested in partaking in that, then definitely get involved. And I'll drop the.
Yeah, a particularly nice thing about Winterfest this year is 1/3 off Take Control books.
Ooh, what's that?
It's really handy. These are books about things like upgrading your Mac or fixing your file system, or various pieces of the built-in applications that perhaps you don't use very much. And suddenly you need to use GarageBand. And uh, it's great to have these around. And you can just go shopping for things like take control of your backups uh, for the day when you might need it.
So let's go ahead and learn more. And so you get 30% off on all of these or the whole library?
I believe it's 3% on any that you decide to you want.
Okay, nice. All right, and is there anything else new other that we want to be highlighting in this year's Winterfest?
If you scroll up to the second row, there's a couple of specialized applications for dealing with your photo library, Picto and Avalanche. This isn't something I do much of, but in fact, the more typical user, as we just saw in Michael's example with his Christmas dog boarding, uh, you over time end up with a astonishing number of photographs, and our tools actually manage to store this astonishing number of photographs, but we don't think of this as a really large database when it in fact is a really large database.
I think I have something like 50,000 photos in my photos library. So that is a really large database.
Yeah,
All right, cool. I'm gonna have to check this one out today. And the picture that Mark was referring to is I'm doing rover.com bot and dog boarding for Christmas. And so this was my morning walk this morning. And one of my guests, Charlie, who is, and this is one of my guests who has co-opted my lap for the last 10 days. So I can't pretty much sit anywhere without her hanging out with me. So that's fun. All right, cool. So thank you very much for that. We'll check that out. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into today. When we can, so what do we want to talk about? We can certainly continue on with part 2 of what we started with when last week. I thought that was fun. And I also had a something that I wanted to share today was what I thought to be a really cool and effective use of display expression and this whole concept of thinking with Tinderbox, which is coming out as the theme of Mark's new book, which is imminently due sometime, hopefully January, early February. And that this idea of thinking with Tinderbox really came to fruition for me today. So I kind of want to walk us through that workflow a little bit and share some of that if everyone's open with that. So those are the 2 kind of agenda items I have on deck. Does anybody else want to throw anything out there? Kim?
Michael, my thought is 2 things. One is when you have a chance, could you fix the link to the Tinderbox file
I did.
in the forum?
I did.
Oh, you did. Okay. I thought I checked there and it hadn't been.
I did it this morning.
Oh, okay. Great. So I think that continuing on that would be more useful, just at least parochially from my point of view, after I've had a chance to digest some of what's in the file and also mix in some of the things I've been working on since then. So we have sort of a more robust and complete sort of set of interesting things to work with.
Got it.
For it.
Okay.
But I certainly appreciate how we've gotten so far.
All right. And if we have nothing else to talk about, maybe we pop it in the end, but we could, I got it. All right. Erwin, Kim, Tom, you have anything?
Go with the win. Yeah, go with his topics.
Okay. Well, I think Win was proposing we punt it, because he hasn't time to consume it yet. But Win, as much as you'll like to punt it, maybe we do come back to it though, because if we have time, because I don't necessarily monopolize everybody with that. But
we can come back to it if you want to. And part of it is that I'm still sort of thinking through how I want to make it work, but as a vehicle for exploring some ways you do things in Tinderbox, it can probably make sense out of that anyway.
Correct. And it's a continuation from last week too. So we can have the 2 weeks be part 1, part 2. So let's go ahead and do that. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is share with you an experience I had this week with Tinderbox that ended up being really, really awesome. So I obviously, because of client proprietary work, I will not disclose my client's report, but let me get my files ready so I can copy some stuff here. But what I want to do is kind of show you a methodology that I had with thinking with Tinderbox. And so you all know I have Tinderbox files with literally thousands and thousands of notes on them. I typically use 4 or 5 files for everything, and kind of bounce around in those. So I've got a lot of kind of preset stuff up, but let's use this example as a way of thinking with Tinderbox. So come in and you say, like, let's say we need to write a report. And in that report, we know we need to have an introduction. And as I'm thinking through this, what I do is I want to talk about using display expression as a tool for thinking. Then what's also important is output and efficiency. Okay. And then by the time I kind of get to doing something like this in map view, and if I decide I'm not really doing map view like thinking, what I'll typically do is I'll pump to outline really quick. I'll drop these kind of stream of thought notes into outline view, because that also helps me see more of the notes. and then I'll think about some of the other things that I want to think about. So, so templating, let's have, have a section on templating, perhaps one on action code and a way to automatically handle the manual stuff. Right. And then I know I'm going to want to have some kind of conclusion to my report. And then so on and so on. And so if you could think about what I was writing is I was, my task for my client is over a 10-year period, we had done a merger and acquisition and investment strategy with several partners, and they wanted us to develop a kind of a codified qualitative, quantitative view on what did we learn from this 10-year arc of work we all did together, which then kind of, as I was thinking about it and as I'm talking with you guys now, as I'm thinking about it, so there's definitely going to be some recommendations. And one of the recommendations immediately was like a partnering checklist. Another recommendation was, work with industry standards bodies, groups, keep track of industry trends. All right. And then that also led to me. And so then as I was thinking too, I'm like, well, what are the future industry trends? So key 2025 and ongoing trends, monitor, and then for me, a big one of this is reusable identity. Identities are going to be huge by 2026, according to Gartner. 500 million people with a digital wallet. Right. So basically I was doing stream of thought thinking. And I spent maybe an hour, 2 hours on that, came back a day later, spent another hour, 2 hours on that. And after a while, I had this long list of notes. And some of these notes were paragraphs long within the note names, because I found that to be really useful in the thinking of the process. Now, to help us with our just kind of management of notes, and for this particular, we'll call mock-up or demo, let's go ahead and add in a prototype. I always pick my muscle memory, pick person first, so we don't need that. And we'll give a little note, note icon there. So we've got our note icon. And so as I'm thinking about this particular file, so I've got all these notes and I wanted to start organizing it. So we'll call this one. And then I also had key accomplishments. Whoops, here it's got my spelling error issues here. And then we had key challenges. Yeah, and basically what what I'm going through here and kind of trying to reproduce without disclosing client information is exactly what I went through. So it was an international, so struggled. International cultural issues. Internal. Okay. So we kind of went through and as I continued to organize this, and this ended up being about a 20-page report when I was done. But as I was thinking about it, one of the things I was trying to think about is I've got all of these paragraphs of stuff, and how do I actually start summarizing it? And again, in some of them, now I can start, now that you get the gist of what I'm doing, let's go ahead and put some like some of it looked like this, you know, and I'll give another one of these. And I'm using text expander for those that are asking like what's going on here. So I had paragraphs of stuff like this as I was going on. And then by the time I was done, I had maybe 200-300 notes like this, loosely organized, loosely categorized within the kind of rough containers of the way I wanted the work to be done. And the analogy I think about when I think about this is when I watch my daughter do art, she'll start with like light pencil drawings. And then as the structure of her art starts to formalize, those pencil drawings start to get moved or erased, or they kind of disappear into the background, and then you end up with this really beautiful final piece of art. And for those that don't understand the artistic process or flow, they might not realize all of these really light, rough sketches and light sketches and directional ideas that the artist was putting on the paper prior to getting that final output. And that's really what I think about often when I think about Tinderbox. Is it's really this artistic medium, but with words in that context. So then I was thinking about, well, how do I do a better summary of all of this kind of work? And like, so one of the things I wanted to talk about is, you know, we had partnering issues, we had technology issues, we had communication challenges, we had, you know, budgeting challenges. I mean, very stereotypical, you know, business 101 stuff that any kind of commercial operation, any human endeavor would go through. But I wanted to be able to summarize those up in the beginning. So then that made me think about, okay, so I need some summary text here. But then as I'm kind of trying to eyeball the output, as I'm trying to eyeball the work, what can I do to help me kind of help me with that categorical summarization of the thinking? So with that, and then keeping in mind, I do all of my writing and output in Tinderbox. So I'm not someone that is going to do some thinking in Tinderbox and then copy and paste that into Google Docs or a Scrivener or something like that, and finish my work there. Because as I've learned through my work and through schooling and all of that, you know, writing is thinking. So if I take my words out of Tinderbox and start doing more writing in Google Docs or Scrivener or some other tool, I'm just now thinking in a different tool, and I'm now losing all the affordances of Tinderbox to help me facilitate that thinking. I'm losing my ability to add attributes where I need attributes, to be able to move stuff around where I need to move them around. So for me, that's why I kind of do this whole end-to-end, you know, collection, curation, creation, collaboration, and then ultimately contribution, my ultimate publishing, or what in Tinderbox language, exporting my material out of Tinderbox and getting it out. So I try to do as much of my thinking, as much of my work, as much as my writing as possible in Tinderbox until that very last moment where I have to now export it to Word or a PowerPoint or an Excel file to be able to pretty it up, to be able to hand it to somebody else who might not happen to have Tinderbox. So that's my methodology and thinking there. So with that in mind, the idea I came up with was this, and you can call the terminology anything you want. Let me go ahead here, and I'll call this category. So I came up with and I'll make that a set. So I came up with an attribute I called category. And so I started then going down through it. And now I realized, okay, now what I need to do is right mouse click on the note icon here and give everything the note prototype. So that way I'm going to get the category keyword here. And I have some really, really robust templates that I use, and several of these templates particularly are used for creating bulleted lists and doing subsections of documents. So as I think through, and I'll give you kind of show you my structure. So in a particular document, I've got this, right, and then I'll have, you know, right, and I can share in future classes, I'll be sharing some more of these kinds of ideas. And I've got on ads that help me remember the on ads and all that. But that way, accomplishments. And then let's remember to give these two there. Oops. Okay. So in that note, I'd have an introduction here. I'd end up having an introduction here. And again, using on ads, it would automate the addition of those prototypes. So you can start seeing how, as I was kind of going through this brainstorming method of ideas that were coming out, as we're kind of thinking about, and I was having to reflect over 10 years of work and looking back at past archives on my hard drive of different folders and presentations that we did to really kind of tease out what were those really core insights that we want to be able to give up to the senior executives that will help us then move forward for future projects where we can take advantage of things we did really well and try to curb or mitigate the challenges that we had before. And then also setting the stage for what the future might be and what recommendations might come out of that. So I was thinking about that, and I'm seeing all these words on the screen, and obviously I don't want because I use Tinderbox as my means of outputs, ergo I want to report, ergo my note titles become the titles of note headers. What I would end up doing is, I obviously don't want paragraphs of content there. So I then took a pause and I said, okay, now that I've kind of got the, I barfed out all these ideas out of my head, I've got them out there on the wall, or spaghetti threw them onto the wall. I now want to start going through and synthesizing these a little bit more. So I went ahead and I copied this one and I said, okay, here's the words that I put to that. And now let me change the title to something like, team communication. Might have been an idea. And then the category might have been, communication. Right. So therefore I said, okay, so great. I've got team communication. I've got a category. I will go down here and let's say, copy this one in and we say, let me try to give an example with enter members. Okay, and then I'd say, so this became a human resources issue. Right. And I won't go through, I won't be reproducing the entire report in front of you, but you kind of get the idea that I was then, doing that next level of curation or triage going down here, and we'll call this one like server infrastructure or cloud-based server deployments. And that became technology. Right. So I kind of was able to kind of go through my entire document and take all of these notes that had these really long names and and give it and kind of give them shorter, more heading-like names that you might see in a business report. Leverage and then I was able then to see the typos that I left in there, which I kind of intentionally, when I'm in that brainstorming stage, I don't really care. So you'll see that I was then able to go in and fix the grammar and fix the typos and do that next level of triage. But then I'm going through here and I'm thinking, well, this is challenging now because I'm not getting that qualitative view that I want to get to help me finish writing my reports. And then it dawned on me that I could use the displayed expression. So I went ahead and I added. I use, because I like to do my calculations in action code. We've talked about this before, but I'll do it again. I've got displayed expression cache. So I create a string variable I call displayed expression cache. I make the displayed expression of my note equal to that. And then, as I said, when I work in a lot of my templates, I don't necessarily want what I'm about to do impact all of my notes. So then I created another boolean that said is use category, and you might choose to give it a different name, and so it's by default is true. And then I said, okay, on these notes, and again, I have and I might as well demonstrate it now too, because I've got so many notes in my I'm going to the file menu right now and hitting hints. So we're getting up there. So I've got so many notes in my in my system. I don't necessarily want thousands of edicts running, and so some of my notes and my action code methods might have, I don't know, 20 to 30 different types of edicts or 30 types of lines of action code that might be running on a particular note. And so if I have 10,000 notes with 20 to 30 lines in a rule, and then another 20 to 30 lines in a edict, let's call that 60 times 10,000. I don't want that code running behind the scenes all of the time. So as great as rules and edicts are for automatically running action code, I don't necessarily need them constantly running in the background all of the time. So I came up with this strategy. So I call it the OnVisit, and then we'll call it pnote. So I'll create a stamp called OnVisit pnote, and then this is where I'll write my action code. So I'll say if is use category equals true, then I want the displayed expression cache equal to the name plus space plus a parenthesis plus category. And if I have multiple items in a category, I would format it by saying format, comma this, and I'll give you an example of that in just a minute. And then I want a plus and close out the parenthesis and go like that. Let's get this a little bit, make it easier to read. And then I'll decide I want an else. So if it's not true, I want the display expression just to go back to its default. Okay. So that sets it to its default. So now that I've done that, and I'm going to run this OnVisit code on any notes. And so what this allows me to do is it allows me to have the affordances of all of my action code without having it constantly running in the background. And even on an M4, honestly, that can slow things down, or it can trip stuff up sometimes if you're not careful. So I then go to the and unlike action, rule, remove, etc., some of the other action code windows that we don't have that for OnVisit. So if you go to the quick stamp, you type OnVisit, and then if I use the operator stamp, right? What that does is, and applying that. So what this means is every time I visit a note, it will trigger this stamp's action code and let it run. So now it's another example of letting me have this kind of one-time triggering of action code all of the time. And so that's as opposed to having to manually apply that stamp. And then like any other action code, if I wanted to string other stamps, other action code within this OnVisit trigger, I could, but I tend to just bury them all into that one note I call OnVisit. So that lets me now trigger notes. Now, if I go to these notes, so in the context of writing my report, and I'll give you an example of what I don't want and what I do want. So if I go here and I write, whoops, not action, pnote, right? So what I want to help me is the list of the accomplishments and the list of challenges. I want them to have the category visible so I can so it would help me with my thinking and possibly with my output. And I wasn't sure when I was thinking about it at that time, but it most certainly could help me with with my thinking if I'm actually able to see the value of the category. And let's just put here some term cat. Let's just so you can see, and I'm just going to make up the cat 1. Look at that one, cat 2. And let's call this one F1, 3. So, and I'm just going to kind of fill some of these out so we have more to work with. Cat 9, maybe let's call that a cat 3, cat 4. You know, and so on. So let's say that. So now, and so to be able to help me with my thinking, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to display, see those, see those categories. So in order to make that happen, I'm going to go collect on these, and I'm going to turn on the use category attribute, and I'm going to set these values to true. And so by doing that, and now if I go back and revisit with the onAdd function, the onVisit function, I can now get the displayed in this one. And I can actually see too, because I've done that, I can actually now visually see which of my notes I didn't actually give myself a category for. So we'll call that one cat 5. And looks like my format's wrong on my displayed expression. So category.format, that should have worked. Let's see what's wrong with that one. Name category.format. Okay, I don't want to waste any time right now. I'm not sure why that's not showing up as a properly formatted. Categories is set. Let me just double check here. Ah, okay, that's the error. I didn't make category a set. So if I make category a set, what this operator is going to do here is it's going to dynamically format the set so that it will remove the delimiter of the semicolon within a set, and then remove it with the period. So if I now go up here, you see that it's now automatically said category comma 1. So that's kind of an example how you can manipulate set values for formatting and output. So now that I've done that, you know, and you see category 5 is now properly operated. So now I could sit here and say, okay, now I'm going to write my summary. You know, we had several accomplishments. Challenges. And for instance, okay, then I can say, you know, cat 1, cat 2, you know, cat 5, blah blah blah. And so you get the idea. And then you know, challenges included, you know, cat 3. Right, and obviously this is fake content, synthetic content, so you know we're making it up as we go. But you can imagine now that because I can see these, you know, my categories, it's helping me with my writing, and because I've been kind of going through this synthesis of the writing, I don't need to see the paragraphs anymore to be able to kind of help me with my summarizations and my ideas. And then as I'm going through that and I'm writing my summaries, that's giving me more ideas. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened too. So that I'd come up and give another lorem some idea, give it, you know, by this. And now that we have the my structure in place, because the incremental formalization of the activities let me know my structure. And I'm like, oh yeah, we had this other category issue that we had. So then I can come back up here and say, then we had this other, you know, cat 6 issue 2. Right. And so you can get the idea of how this method of thinking helped me, you know, drive and interact with the process. So then, let's say after some period of time, I'm now done with my report, and I'm now ready to export it. So this is where templating comes into play and can be incredibly effective. But before I go on to that next step, let me pause here. You know, Kim, Wynn, Erwin, Tom, you've been all dutifully kind of and quietly watching me through this process. Let me stop. Any thoughts, comments, reactions, ideas? Does the thinking methodology rollout make sense in the and kind of the way I've approached thinking with Tinderbox in this way? Yes, Win, you're coming off video. You're going to have a comment for us?
I was just going to say I appreciate the tour. I'm thinking about where the technique can be useful for me, but I think it's showing off some interesting pieces of it. So thanks.
Okay. Yeah, and again, hopefully what I'm demonstrating here too is it's showing you how you can start from a blank page, throw out ideas with no structure at all, and then allow that structure to kind of find its own way. It's almost like how Da Vinci said, I didn't carve David. David was already in the stone. I just unlocked him, right? So your ideas are already there, but this incremental methodology kind of helps you just kind of unlock it. And in this particular context, in this particular use case, because I'm going with a more business-like report with headings and structures, and where it's more of a qualitative, quantitative analysis method. I found this really useful, and so now I'm ready to get this out. I now want to contribute. I've done my collection, I've done my curation, I've created some new concepts or ideas, from this work. I collaborated with a couple other people where I gave them some calls and I figured that out. And so with that in mind too, that helped now that we're brainstorming with it, that gives me some other attribute values that we want to stick in here. And attribution. All right, call it a key 2. And we'll make these both sets. So what that allowed me to think too is, for my work, so let's say this was a lorem, and as I'm doing the work, this particular chunk of stuff was Trees 2022. Maybe we had, and down in this one we had a somewhere in the middle of the text there was a Peterson 2016 that came up because this was a 10-year exercise. So you could think about the citations that I might be doing from this work. The other thing that came out of that was attribution. So maybe I didn't want to necessarily put it in the body of the work, but I wanted to cite somebody here too. Norris 2019. Maybe there's another attribution down here that we'll give to right. So I can now be citing my work as well. And I did some and let's see if I can remember how to do this real quick. I can go like this and let's test it. Extract citations. Let's see if I can remember my regex on this real quick. I don't have to remember. I can pull from my book. Extract. Find the extract code. This one. New page. Because this is kind of fun. All right. So I had I created a stamp. This is called. Got that created here. So basically, citation key equals text.extract all, and then the regex of find the bracket with the @ symbol, grab everything in between that, grab, and then with escape the other bracket symbol, you know, or find anything that if you have an inline piece of text, find a complete word with the @ symbol in front of it, and then that complete word. So when I do that, and we'll just do this as a stamp. Now we can go through and you'll see here I extracted Treese out of that, and I'll give you an example. We can see Becker 24, right? And I'll apply that stamp again. Right, and you'll see now I get that. So this was a way for me to as well is to you know, create an index of my references and stamps. And I'll give you another, if we have time, I'll give you another trick too on how you can actually create a glossary and index of those things as well. So I'm now kind of, again, continuing down that little formalization process, but now I want to create my my report. So we'll go up to templates. All right. And remember, in Tinderbox, the great thing about Tinderbox is your templates can, you know, aren't just about exporting content out. They're not just about I'm adding in a separator just to help me you know, keep these things. They're also about helping you create new views and new and visuals for yourself. So I'm going to modify the kind of standard template here real quick. And you'll see here we've got the title of a note's name here. But in the context of this report, to also facilitate my readers of the report, I wanted them to be able to see the categories too. But remember, if I were to universally apply that is use category to every note, you know, for the notes where I didn't have a category, I purposefully didn't have a category. Well, I don't want the empty parentheses there. That doesn't help me. It gets in the way, and it's annoying. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that value, and you see it goes away. So I'm gonna be very specific and only consciously put the is used category, aka for the naming, in those notes where I actually want the categories showing up in the note names. So now what do we do? So I can go to my template and I use the export action code operator. Yeah, at the head of my template. Now you can write this as a function. You can write this as, you know, a stamps. You can put this kind of code anywhere you want. I purposely like including the action operator in the head of my templates because when I copy and paste these templates to other files, I don't have to remember to bring a function library along with the template. I find this easier to do it, and I generally know how to write the code, so it's okay. So I'll say if so, and the other reason too why you're using export code, the export code wrapper here, or the export code action wrapper, is this allows you to write action code in within a template, which would typically use export code. So I'm going to write my action code now, and I'm going to say if is use category. And the only issue that that this method really has for me at least is it doesn't automatically prompt because I haven't applied the action filter or I guess you could too if you wanted to. I can play with it. So if I apply the action prototype on a template, it actually will show up and says is use category equals true, then and I have to create then I want you to do something. And then because I'm in an export code, I'm going to create a variable string. We're going to call it vname, and it will be blank. And so we'll say vname equals display expression cache, right? Or any other number. But you know, here's the interesting thing is display expression cache is a string variable like name is, like any other variable. So when it's populated and working with, why not use it? Is my thought process there. Right. So I basically said, If using if is use category equals true, then v expression cache, else I want rename simply equal to name. Okay, so now that I've done that and I've got a populated variable of name, I can go down here and change this using the export code of value to v name. Okay, and why don't I do this too while we're at it? I'm going to go ahead and change this to Becker page and Becker item. Because I've done that, so what I want to do is I want to actually demonstrate and show you all the change in the process. So, and here, okay, next space there, no. All right, so now we can put the HTML template back in, have that standard as well. All right, so now I've created my Becker page item. So essentially what this is going to do is if I've applied the Becker page template, it's going to use the display expression cache for the name and not just the name. So then I'll show you another incremental formalization in just a minute. So to demonstrate that though, let's go to here. We click on the tab, export tab, and we say, let's have our P-note prototype use the HTML template. So now if we go view this report, we go up to Windows and we say show in text pane, and we can actually preview our report. And so you see here, I'm seeing my report as it's written. And in this context, because we use the HTML template, we're not seeing the categories and any of the outputted names. So now, if we go ahead and change the template to our Becker report, you'll now see, if I go through and double check what's wrong. Oh, because I can't have, I don't think I should have the action on that template. Should just be HTML. That's the problem. Okay. The list of accomplishments. Not seeing what I want to see, so let me see what I did wrong. Got a typo here somewhere. Got to uncover it. And this is where having views are helpful. Oh, I know why. Because I did the action code in the way templates work is the top level template is the one you're selected, and then the items are the one in the children. And you'll notice here in my Becker template, I put the code action in the top level, but not in the item template. So now if I do that, now you'll see all of my sub bullets have my categories. So now I can actually have my report the way I want it. Now, there's some other affordances you can do here in terms of automating it so that right now the way our template works is all of these are heading 1s and heading 2s. Every child, regardless of its depth, is a heading 2. So if we want, I can show you how to automate that heading depth numbering scheme. I'll have to look at my notes to remember how I did it because I haven't touched with that concept in a long time. But you get that. Let me see, where did my template go here? Yeah, but you get the idea of now this is a way. I think this is just a really great way to think with Tinderbox. and have the affordance to be able to actually get stuff out. And because I've done it this way, I can now simply, if I'm not using export code or getting the content out or doing anything like that, I can go to, let me log into my Google Docs real quick. Shape that's so now I can just open up a Google Doc, paste in the content. And then I can share that Google Doc with anyone. So this is again, and then you can fix the typos. And when I see typos like this, I'll then, and this is where the little manualness can be kind of kind of a pain. But then I'll just kind of see the error in the exported document, and then just copy and paste the corrections back and forth. And then again, because writing is thinking, I'm now able to think in the new medium that is Google Docs, which is the ultimate output that my client is going to get, and it will stimulate other thoughts and other ideas. And so I actually find the friction between moving between the two mediums actually more helpful than it is not. And it's a lot like what Marshall McLuhan taught us in the 1960s, 1964, when he talked about the medium as the message. The medium we use to convey our message influences how that message is received and created. So I find the value of switching between these two platforms, really helpful. So that's a method that I came up with this week, that I found particularly useful and helpful. And the nice thing about it too is because of the templating methodology, the templating structure, the use of attributes, the use of variables in the action code. It took me less than 5 minutes to modify my existing templates to interject this new kind of way of interjecting new notes, the name of a note's output differently than say other notes within my templates. So that kind of evaluation was super helpful. And obviously Charlie was there with me while she was in the process. So thoughts, comments, ideas, reactions? If you want, I can show you the automated numbering element of a template, which is kind of fun. Otherwise, we can move and spend our last kind of 30 minutes playing with Wins project. Guys, you guys are like my students. There's just no feedback at all.
There's a lot going on here, Michael. I
the
mean, you
cameras are
definitely provided a lot of information, and you're very innovative as well, trying to actually categorize and use some variables and add-ons. And the tooling of a Tinderbox is just watching you do this. It's just like almost like an artist in some respects. But yeah, I'm just watching you do this to actually, learn from the possibilities of Tinderbox. Even though I took your one-on-one class, I'm still just watching you do it in an application mode. It's like it's just you got some chops here. This is amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let me play with and show you the automated numbering element, because I think that does come in handy a lot. So I have a TBX config, and Kim, I do appreciate the platitudes and the recognition. Thank you for that very much. But I'm also not wanting to. I'm pausing to config. I'm pausing too, just to make sure that I'm not losing you all and you're actually still getting value from it. So
But it's very innovative, though. It's very creative how you're doing this. You're creating, like you create these tools and categorizations. It provides another layer of creativity. Then you're like, oh, I can think this way now. So it really provides, as you build, categorize, and filter how you use your tooling. It's a creative process as you go along.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly right. And again, the reason why I like Tinderbox in this context is I'm not confined to the linearity that say is a Google Doc. And writing in Google, writing in Word, I honestly, I can't do it anymore. It's these what I call the output software is just, for me, it's just that. It's output, it's final, fit, and polished, and then hand off to somebody else that doesn't have the affordance of Tinderbox. Kind of goes back to the point when we were talking with Chuck Wade a few weeks back, where that discussion we had about the benefits of rich text versus plain text. I see the value in the rich text model for sure, because you really can't communicate without it. But again, but having the flexibility of the multidimensionality that Tinderbox gives us, as opposed to, say, a Word or a Google Doc, it's really unparalleled. And I find the linearity of the horizontality of say, an Excel or PowerPoint or Word document to be really stifling. So let's go ahead. So I have a note I call TBX config, and then this will teach another really powerful concept about Tinderbox, in that every note has every attribute, and every value of every note's, how do I make sure I word this correctly? Every value of every value in a note's attribute is accessible to any other note via action code. So let me give the camera. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and I'm going to create a new attribute. I'm going to call outline count, and that's going to be a number. Okay. And I'm going to create another attribute called heading depth. Okay. So the reason why I'm doing this, and for those people that aren't familiar with this HTML and HTML methodologies, Tinderbox is initially born as a blogging tool. And so heading 1, heading 2. So the first note selected, or the first note on root, is heading 1. The next child is a heading 2. The next child is a heading 3. The next child is a heading 4. So the outline nesting is mapped to HTML headings. And the challenge I have when working with Tinderbox is, when you've got thousands of notes, I've got like a bunch stuff, right? My report actually, and I shouldn't say sometimes, always, my report is never going to be on the root. So by definition, the second I select this note, it's a heading 2, because it's the so I want to make sure that wherever I start to represent my notes, I'm sorry, that's not correct. It's a heading 1 from here, but wherever I start to represent my notes, I want the appropriate heading styles to apply for me. So if I want to go ahead and do that, so I've created my my outline count and my HTML depth, and I've defaulted them both to 0. And so then I go and I put in this code in the main file in the top. I say heading depth equals 0, or default. And then I say outline count. And then this is where is a really powerful capability that you want from Tinderbox. You say like TBX config. I'm fixing my code as we speak, so I can say down the road and let's make it equal. Okay, that's right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm saying when this template triggers. So I want to make the top level template like my title page. And so when this template triggers, I want to tell Tinderbox, make the heading depth of this note 0, and make the outline count in the TBX config note 0. So I'm telling Tinderbox, so if I've selected report, and let me just demonstrate that right now so you can see the value. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, let's make this 2. So if I run Becker page on the report note, and I run that now, and I go to TBX config, I've now made the outline count 2. So by executing this template, it's told the template, go make the outline count of the of TBX config 2, or 2 in this case, but I want it to be 0. So now I'm going to show you the next piece of the puzzle. And this is where I'm going to need to working here. Okay, got it. All right. I haven't read this code in so long. I just want to make sure it works. Okay, so then, or I want to make sure I can explain it. So now when I'm on the page item, I want to say make your heading depth equal to your heading depth of the parent plus 1. And then I also have it plus a heading offset. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. So just to facilitate, and when you're doing this kind of coding, it's helpful to add add the attributes to your notes so that you can kind of see the values. And then when you're done and you know the code works, you can remove it. Okay, so I've got my report, and so now, oops. So now essentially what I'm saying is, where's my templates? Here it is. So essentially when I launch the template, it's going to say, make your heading depth, make the top level note heading depth 0, and make the outline count of TBX config equal to 0. And the outline count, I'm not going to do this right now, but the outline count was something is something I actually shouldn't have introduced that, but that's an appendix, not necessarily needed for the demo that I'm explaining right now. So we won't actually touch on that. We can deal with it later. When you're in the item note of the template, make your heading depth, and this is where having the action element enabled can be helpful. Make your heading depth equal to the heading depth of the parent note plus 1. Plus any offset, meaning that, sometimes I might want to manually adjust for whatever structural purpose a note's heading in the templating structure. So the offset concept is an interesting one to do. So now that I've done that, what that will do is let's go ahead and preview. And then we'll have to fix our template in just a second. But you'll see here, so because I did that, the top level note's heading depth is 0. The bottom level note's heading depth is now 1. That one's now 1. That one's 1. This one's now 2. This one's now 3, 1, 2. So now I have the heading number. I have the numbering structure that I want for these particular templates. So then what I can do is I can go into the code, and rather than hard coding my H1, H2s, and I'm just going to copy from my other file so we've got it. You don't have to waste time with me making a mistake. Where is it? Oh, that's the title. Here it is. Got a bunch of stuff in my code that. So the way you write an HTML tag is H1 vname1. And then the way you write a name tag here is H2 vname2. If you're going to do heading 3, you're going to and so on. So what we want to do is we want to have Tinderbox feed the template this number. So we're just going to use our export code to do that. Value heading depth of that note. So by doing it this way, now what we've told Tinderbox is, using the action code, determine what number in the outline order I am, and then feed that number into the HTML tag to automatically number it. So now if we go and look at the report, you'll now see our styling has completely changed, and we're using the standard formatting of HTML templates. And to kind of and to facilitate that a bit more, let me add one little more affordance here, and I'm going to copy from a different file just to make it easier for you all. Okay. So I'm going to create another folder here called CSS folder, CRCSS. And we're going to tape. This is my identity praxis, IDP, standard kind of CSS that I play with. And then if I scroll up to my template, say, where's my header? Live, grab this text. So what we now want to put is in the header of our HTML up here. We want to put in another tag, style. And as I was sharing before, what we want to do is we want to use the value tag and say value equals the text of CSS IDP. So by doing this, and again, there's ways to, in my templates, I've programmatically done this so I can change all the values and all that. So for this particular explanation, I'm hard coding this, but there's a way to programmatically manage this as well. What I'm telling Tinderbox too is when you launch this this template on a particular note, manage the action code, trigger all the action code to manipulate the values of these attributes, the name and particularly the heading models, and then stick in the text from the CSS IDP. So in other words, insert the CSS styling I want into the style section of the header of this HTML page. Here is that style. So now when we go and run the report, we actually get blue headings and underlined styles, and we get the styling that we want in our document. And now if I copy this and bring it over to Google Docs, we've now got a more stylized version of a document. So that's another kind of really cool thing you can do. And if you look at the HTML, you'll see here is the CSS file that's been inserted into the page. And you'll also see into the text H1, H4, H2, H3. You'll see that Tinderbox has now properly coded our HTML for us as well. So this is just a really wickedly cool way to go about doing it. Now, given we have a few minutes left, I mentioned to you that I often will bullet my notes. And so in doing that, let's go ahead here and we'll create a T list. And if you have a bulleted list, create our action code. We can say variable list equals v list. And that v list is going to be the collect children ID. Right, so we've now created a list, and we'll say for every list, v list. Before we do that, we need a string. Variable string equals v string. And now we'll say variable, v string equals. Now, when you're creating a list in HTML, the HTML tag for opening up a list is the UL tag. That's if you want a bulleted list. If you want an ordered list, you would say OL for ordered list. Bullets versus numbers. And so I'm going to open up an ordered list, and I'm going to tell string to close that list. All right, and then I want Tinderbox to automatically create the bulleted list for me. So we're going to say for each vlist.each x I want you to, and what we also want to do here is we want to drop in a line break. Let's say v string is going to equal list tag. And this is how you create a bulleted list. Just copy and paste this here. That's how you end the bulleted list. And we'll give it its line break 2. And then we're going to add one more in here. Whoops. And this is going to be, all right. So essentially what this is doing is saying, hey, Tinderbox, I want, from this template, and look at your children, collect all the children, and we want to have not X, we want because X in this context is an ID number. So I want you to get me the name of X. So what we're saying is go get me the ID numbers of all of the children of the notes. Then what I want you to do is open up, start populating a variable with your HTML code that is the list that you want to insert into the document. And then we just say value v string. Right. So I'm having the template produce a basically bulleted list for me. So now if I go here and I view this bulleted list, I can see what I did wrong. Just a minute. T-list. Okay. So this is the other reason why you want to use your export template a lot. So what did I do wrong? I look at here and all I'm seeing in my output is a unordered, the closing of the unordered list. Anybody want to tell me what I did wrong? I get that you're all going to want to rewatch this over and over again to get the affinity of what I'm doing here. But let me tell you what I did wrong. Remember, your export code is iterative. And so I'm going through and I'm saying, make your v-string equal the UL tag. Now make your v-string equal the li tag. Now make your v-string equal to this. Now make your v-string equal to that. So it's doing exactly what I'm asking it to do. Make the v-string equal to each of these different values. But what I haven't done is tell it to make your v-string equal to this, and then add this, and then add this, and then add this, and then add this. So I need to tell this. I need to tell the string to be additive. And so now I get a bulleted list. And if I look at the export code, here is the perfectly formatted bulleted list. Okay. So now what do we do? Now, for the sake of my report, what I want is I don't want these items to be as headings. I actually want them to be bulleted lists in my output. So how do we do that? Well, we can go to the Tinderbox file, and we can say, let's go to our notes first, and we say is yes list children is, we don't need the list, it's list children. All right, so now, and I'm going to move this aside so you see this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this is list children into a boolean. So it's a yes, no, true, false operation that we're going to do. and I'm going to put that there. And so then I can go up here and I say, I want the children of accomplishments to be a list. And I want the children of list of challenges to be a list in my output. And then we go back down to the template. And we say, in this case, it's just from an example perspective, I'll go ahead and just show you the modify it. We'll use export code as export action code now rather than action code. So we'll say if is list children equals true, double equals true. Then, and that's how you close out. That's how you close out an if. And then let's finish the end if so we don't forget to do it. Right. So if in export code, if is list children equals true, then what do we want? What we want it to do? What I want you to do is include this with the template t-list. Okay, so this is a really, really powerful method in Tinderbox, and this goes all the way back to the root of Ted Nelson and Gorenson's hypertext world of transclusion and inclusion, where keep the stuff where it is, and then use operators like include to include them in the output. So now if we go and view this note, you'll now see I've got my bulleted list in my output. But I still have all of the children here in the output as well. So in that context, there is a contextual situation where this particular note in the output, I want the children of this particular note being outputted as a bulleted list, but I don't want the template to output the children. So then this is how we modify that. So we create another attribute, is no child. And that will be a boolean. And we come up here and we say, now I'm going to tell Tinderbox to not make not use the children of these notes, meaning don't output these children. So then how do I have Tinderbox do that? I need to modify this. So if a note has children, so what the template's saying is, run this action code on this note, apply the code that we've just done, and if the note has a children, then interrogate its children with Becker item. But in the context of this, in this particular context, we don't want these children to be run with Becker item. So we say is if is no child equals false, then we want you to do this. And if, right? So if the no child is false, then actually interrogate the children of the note. But if no child is true, then don't. And then the next command that Tinderbox is going to say is if the children is list children equals true, then provide a list. So what you should expect when you see this is the template's now saying, run your action code, start putting in the header stuff, and then for the note that I am, then start looking at the children's notes, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't want you to run my children, so skip this step. And now I'm saying, but yet in this note, the boolean is list my children, and so I'm gonna have the note list the children as this. So let's kind of show this in steps. So now if I run the report as we had it, I've got all of my notes. Now, if I go ahead and say don't list the children, and I run the report, remember this is list of accomplishments. List of accomplishments title is there, but the children of that note are now gone. And then if I come back and show you and trigger the boolean is list the children, I've now got a report with the list of the children as a bulleted list. Okay. Now, the other thing that we may want to do is you'll notice the font is a little off of these bulleted lists because I can't remember the CSS for, there's two ways to do that, but we can either go to WC3 schools. Styling lists. So you can say, how do you style the Lee? You can learn to style lists this way. Or if you, that's one way to do it, or you cheat. Say, right? Now, this won't necessarily be the style that we want, but I can copy this code. I come into my CSS file that I created, drop in this the CSS styling we want, and I go here, and you'll now see that the bulleted lists are slightly different. So then, now that we've got the elements in there, we can go in and change them. So we can say like, I want my Lee font size to be 20, maybe. Just to make it 24, just to emphasize the difference. I'll have to play with that a little bit more. But you can see this is how you'll actually modify and edit your version. Let's see, font size. Let's see on the Lees. I want the font size bigger. Font size bigger. Is that doing right? Yeah, there we go. So now I've made my font size bigger here. So then I can just come down here and say, right, that's it. So sometimes it's really helpful too to exaggerate what the code's doing for you so that you can actually see that it works. And then you can zero in on exactly the way you want to have it. So now I've got a cleaner, more, and I can work on the fonts here. And again, now that I've got this, I can copy this, go back to my Google Doc, paste it in, and now I've got a document with a bulleted list. And Phil, for those that are teachers, this is unbelievably helpful for creating class announcements. And so I write all of my class announcements in Tinderbox, and then I just paste them into the school's LMS. So that way I now have a record of every announcement I've done for every class I've taught, and it's not landlocked and stuck in the school's LMS. It's actually in my own personal LMS for the class. So that's a whole other, and so this is essentially an example of how I go about doing that.
Michael?
Yeah.
Which LMS does your school use?
I've used them all. On Canvas is what we're using now, but I've used Blackboard and other ones as well.
Do you paste the HTML export in for them, or
go here? I highlight the HTML and then paste the HTML export into the announcement, and it works great. So that way I have a record of every announcement I've done with every class for the last 2.5 years. And then I can go back and see what was I talking about in that class. And then in the context of like what you're doing right now, you're preparing for the next class. It's all in there, right? I've got my announcements. I can see what we were talking about, what I had forgot to do, or what I had to remind students of, and that kind of thing. And that helps with future course development. All right.
That's part of what I have in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, using the same methods that we just talked here, you create an announcement prototype. And you can use all of the same affordances that we just went through here in this templating process. All right. Unfortunately, we didn't get to, or fortunately, your case because you didn't actually want to. We didn't get to going through your stuff, but we can do that at the next meetup if you want. Why don't you prepare between now and next week? And on the Saturday, the 4th session, we can make your part 2 next week's session.
Sure. And I will probably have something more interesting to show from that. I've got some small questions if you want to spend a little bit more time.
No, we got time.
On some things, but it's up to you.
No, we got time. Small questions on this or on something else?
They're actually related to small things that I want to do in my project, but I think they're sort of they're more isolated than trying to do the complicated like dependency stuff.
Yeah.
For it because I'm still figuring out some details. And also if I click on the link in the forum on the file from last time, it says it either doesn't exist or the permissions are wrong.
Even still now?
Yeah. Or as of half an hour ago.
All right. Oh, you mean you were clicking around and while I was dutifully trying to do all this? You're right. It doesn't work. Let me fix that right now.
Oh, the screen's got room for more than one thing.
Yeah, I know. Who teased me? Oh, what?
And I just wanted to make sure I could get it. That was all.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's hard to prepare when you don't actually have the file to prepare with.
Yeah.
Publishing, published. I just got to find it here. Meetup. All right, while we're at it too, this is actually a good demo of regex. So when uploading it took me a while to learn how to do this. So when uploading a file to Tinderbox, if you notice I'm using in my Tinderbox uploads, I use a regex or not regex, markdown template strategy. But when you're uploading a file to Discourse, Discourse uses Markdown as well. And so you see in here, I'm having a conflict. The pipe symbol here designates a table cell, but in Discourse's upload process, they actually use the pipe here, or here actually, to delineate between the name of the file and the attachment that it's about to upload. And so so if you escape that, it actually enables the upload to actually work. And
cool.
So for some reason though that didn't work. The file should be there. I'll fix that. It could be with the original file. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I think now I may need to rename it. All right, I'll do that after that.
Okay. That's great. Just do you want a few other quick? I think they're mostly quick questions. If they're not, we can take them another time.
All right, go for it.
So I've got a sort of a set of notes that I would like to have as children of every lecture session.
Okay.
So like, there's a note for readings and stuff for, some activities and the introduction and so on for it. So is there a way to sort of stamp out that sort of like the empty set of, or the set of those with empty content, just so I've got the placeholders for all of them easily?
Yeah, like the lorem ipsum thing that I'm doing in the strategy.
Except I want to add the notes.
Okay, let me. I'm now trying to
as children of the lecture.
All right, can you show us?
I could just and bring up yours, and I can tell you what I have in mind.
All right, I don't know why this file's not coming up. All right, let me open this up. All right.
Or I suppose I could share.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is from last week. Now, what do we want to do?
Okay, so underneath every lecture, there's a set of child notes that I would like to have, like readings, introduction, and so I'd like to have an easy way just to add all of those to the 26 lecture notes
Got it. All right. So let me show you how to do that. So if you go here, I don't know if you knew that you can do this, but you can actually do this. Readings,
It just works in the prototypes. Okay.
right? Now watch what happens. Introduction. Whoops. Probably assignments.
Yeah. So something like that.
Right. So then if I go like here, actually, let's do none. Apply lecture. It will automatically
And
add.
they've all got it there. Okay, great. That's just part of the prototype. I just thought of that earlier, so I hadn't investigated it yet. Is there a way to set the background color of a note title?
Mm-hmm. So you can do it programmatically, or if you go up here, you go interior outline. It's this one, bright green. No, it should have worked. Yeah, subtitle, or is it this one? Can't remember. There you go. That's the color of the note title.
Right. I got that.
The background. I thought that, okay. So the background color I thought was this one. Why is that not working? All right, let's see. Let's type background. Here's all our backgrounds, map, outline, background color.
Oh, there was a text background color. Or
yeah, I think this one is bright green, bright blue. Right. So now let's see which one of these became bright blue. I thought you could do it here, but I guess you can't. I don't see. Ah, there it is. Caption. Yeah, it looks
that's
like
blue. Well, it's blue. It's not bright blue.
no, it's not caption. I don't know if you can do it. I don't see, and I could be missing something, but it looks like you need to do it through the quick stamp. So the attribute value is outline background color.
So what does text background color do?
I don't know.
It showed up when you were searching for background. It showed up down at the bottom.
Anybody remember what red is? Let's type red. Ah, text. It's the text.
Oh, it's right. It's the background color of the displayed note. Okay. The other one was outline background color. I think that's what I want.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Okay. And then I was wondering if you have suggestions on having multiple visual indications in the outlines. I've got 3 now. There's the text color, the background color in the outline, and a badge for things. Because there's just sort of, as you can imagine, a complicated set of status indicators on. I've started this. It's done. It's already passed, etc. For it. So you're just sort of looking for what the options are for that.
My other one I really like. My other one is flag. So I actually use this for my grading.
Okay.
Right. So if I've got
so
a number dot red, 59 red. So I use the flag attribute too.
Okay. Great.
Flags. Right. And then so for that kind of affordance, there is badge, there's outline color, there's text color, there's background color, there's flags, and then you can also use displayed attributes like I just demonstrated.
Right.
Right. Yeah, but putting some kind of parenthetical thing here.
Right.
Which I find really helpful.
And then the last thing, and this is building on, this may be one we just want to deal with next time. So what I'd like to do, I think, sort of riffing on, or I'll describe it in terms we were using today, is to have an export of the notes for a lecture that
Right.
includes the contents, all the topics that we have assigned through the process we were talking about last week for it. And what I think would be fun to do is that the topics, so I'm working on a topic and I assign it to the lecture, and that was a nice interface for doing that because it's topic focused. And then when I'm working on the lecture would be to arrange in the outline the sequencing of the individual topics, but it would be nice to have the topics that are collected for the lecture visible there, which I think I can do with aliases on the topics and maybe have an agent that puts it in the right place.
Yeah,
Is that the right idea?
So what you can do here, so let's say, got it. So let's say this topic B and D is in this lecture.
Yep.
Okay. So actually, this is how I do that. So I create an agent and I say, and again, I actually use a, come on, why is my screen? There we go. So I use a P agent. I find this helpful. And I give it the little symbols. I give it the heartbeat symbol. And I say agent query, agent priority, agent action. And then I'll do that. Okay. So what I do, I did that fine. Huh. That's funny. Why isn't this prototype not getting assigned to this note? Let me redo another one. Seems wrong. Agent. That is bizarre. For some reason, my agent prototype is not getting assigned. Huh. Never seen that before. Why can't I assign a prototype to an agent? Let's try this. I wonder if a new release bug thing happened. Let's see. Come on. Ah. Yeah. That's bizarre. The prototype's not showing up.
Did you turn on the prototype thing in the prototype one?
Oh, no. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Oh, interesting. I accidentally created two P agents. And it's picking the first one. There we go. All right. So let's go back here. And this is what I also do for my reporting, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I go ID. So I get the, oops, no. I get the ID number of the notes. And then I say, let me look so I don't have to waste time around in the dark. Let me grab one of my other files and look it up.
We can also do this next time. This is more in this.
2 minutes, 2 seconds. Let me just grab it. All right, so I want to do, that's how I did it. Okay, so I say, it's actually kind of fun. So and this is where I do use edicts and stuff like that. So I copy this and I say in my agent, I want to say it's topics, right?
Yep.
Let's add now to this one topic. And I can't remember, did we put we didn't put a prefix on topics at all, did we? No. Okay. So I come up here and I say topic equals descended from oh, it's topics, sorry. Topics equals, and I now need the ID number of this note. And I want to grab topic. So basically I'm grabbing the item, I'm making the topics of the agent equal the topics from any of the notes descended from this note. And I also want to say, oh, I did it wrong, just a minute. It's select if descendants of descended from this note and its alias equals false. So get me all of the notes. Go get, so I'm telling the action code for this agent to populate the topics of the agent equals collect if descended from. Oh, and we don't have any, and that's funny too. We don't have any notes here too. So let's do here topics equals. We also want to have, in the context of what we're doing here, we're also going to topics equals topics. So if we have any notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if I have, let's say we've got an assignment. Right. So that should have worked. All right. Well, we'll just get it in a minute. So I'll figure out. We'll refine the. Oh.
Okay.
No, I got it here. Topics. I'll figure that one out in just a minute. It's not. Maybe it's not. Shouldn't be descended from. Maybe it should be descendants. That's it. Right. I'll figure that one out in a minute because it should be getting B as well. But now that we've done that,
Okay.
no. But watch this. This is where it gets really cool. You say make. So the query is going to be topics agent dot I contains name. So essentially what you're doing is you're saying, hey, Tinderbox, go out and get me all of the notes whose name is equal to the top, the names from the items and the topics, the agent's topics item, and you'll see Tinderbox has collected them.
Right.
Right. Oh no, we did get B. That's why. Shoot,
Yeah.
it was working. So let's do C. Or let's do E just to make sure it was working. Right. So if I run that now, I should get E. What's how do I am I spelling descendants wrong? Descended from, maybe it was working.
Well, the real test to see if it works would be we go down to topic E and add it to lecture 1, because that's how the
Yeah, but I'm also what I'm also trying to do is add in, if you add a topic to assignments, or
Yeah.
add a topic to these other items that you want, that would be what we want to do. And also this is incorrect. Give me a second to figure out what I'm doing wrong here. Here, I know how to look it up. Let me look it over here just a minute. I'll look at my own code. Just give me 2 seconds. Glossary, here we go. Oh, it's a P agent, maybe. Agent. There. That. Oh, I'm in the wrong file. That's why. I shouldn't be. Okay, got it. I know what's happening. If I go here, it is descendants. And it's not, it's agents. Let me get my code. It's P agent does not equal. It's the other way to do it. Ah, I know, because I didn't have the double equal sign. So the topics was failing. That was it. There you go. So now I'm getting all of the topics. But for some reason, we have to deal with the multiple list issue.
right.
That's happening there. And I think the way to deal with that, collect if. Oh, I know what to do. Let's try this. We'll say,
It looks like you got strings at one point and maybe a set in the other.
I do. That's what's happening. So we say vlist equals this. So I'm mixing metaphors, if you will. And then I can say topics equals vlist dot string. There you go. So what that will do is that will convert. There you go. So what that does is that grabs the lists of lists.
Yep.
And then converts the list to a string and then adds it to the topics.
Right.
Okay, so now you've got your list of topics that are being represented in that throughout any part of that lecture.
Right.
And then using the bulleted list templating we just did, or a table templating we just did, you can you know, have that outputted as in your lecture notes.
Right. Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
my pleasure. Exciting times. Any Phil, Ken, Kenneth, Erwin, any of you guys have any other questions? Or, you know, good, useful? Awesome. All right, everybody. Happy New Year, and we will see you in 2025.
Happy New Year, Michael. Thanks a lot.
Bye.